Part 1. Building the foundation of a skills-based approach. Implementing a skills-based approach in your health education classroom requires thoughtful planning. In Part 1, we set the stage for planning and implementing a skills-based approach by providing the background context and research base. The goal is to provide the foundation necessary to support your efforts to make skills-based health education a reality in your school. By the end of this part, you will be able to describe the role of health education as a part of a well-rounded educational experience and discuss health literacy, its relevance in schools, and how it connects across multiple aspects of the school community, as well as how a well-designed health education program can support health literacy. You will also be able to describe key components of a skills-based approach and the importance of social justice and equity approaches in health education. You will better understand ways to increase student motivation at any developmental level and ways to make cross-curricular connections and considerations for health education in the context of school and community. Reading Part 1 will provide the context necessary to move on to Part 2, in which we examine each skill of the National Health Education Standards in detail. Chapter 1. The Role of Health Education. Learning Objectives. After reading this chapter, you will be able to do the following. 1. Describe the need for health education in kindergarten through grade 12. 2. Identify resources to support the implementation of school-based health education. 3. Explain the role of health education in helping to improve health outcomes. Key terms. 1. Health. 2. Health continuum. 3. Health education. 4. Health outcomes. 5. Salutogenic perspective. 6. School-based health education. 7. Wellness. The construct of health and what it means to be healthy is widely discussed and will be explored throughout this text. To frame our work, we must recognize that the concept of health, and what it means to be healthy, is subjective. We each have health, although the level to which it is good or bad, positive or negative, depends on each person. Another term we often use when discussing health is wellness or well-being. While health is often described as an absence of disease, wellness tends to consider the whole person and recognizes that each person can achieve wellness or well-being in a variety of ways, and that health is rooted in our personal experiences, values, and beliefs. You can be healthy in one aspect of your life and unhealthy in another. You can be on a path to health but not yet achieve what you consider ideal health, something few of us are able to achieve and may not even be what we should be striving for. If we are always striving for ideal, then we are always striving and create a society in which, as suggested by Quinnerstedt and Oman, 2016, health is prized, expected, demanded, valued and unquestioned, and where the individual is responsible for his or her health and free to make choices. The salutogenic perspective might just become another way of striving toward the social norms of health. P. 200. Health as a continuum. The word health is often used and central to our work as health educators, but what does it really mean? For example, our definitions of health would differ depending on which level of health we were examining: individual, community or neighborhood, or state or country. Bar. 2014. We will focus our discussion here on the individual level because that is a main focus for health education, though we will also describe in this chapter and throughout the text how health education has a responsibility to examine and address health at the community level, and possibly beyond. For our purposes, we see health education as the development of health-promoting strategies that focus on behaviors, knowledge, and influences such as attitudes and motivation, individual and community or population perspectives, and the goal is to improve health, move people toward the healthy end of the continuum. See Dentop and van der Mars, 2022. At the individual level, we can examine health from the approach of a medical model, example illness versus free from illness, in the context of functioning at a normal level within one's social circumstances, or from a psychological perspective examining health as general well-being. Bar. 2014. Each of these approaches would offer a different perspective on one's relative health. Bar. 2014 asks us to reflect on the following 6 people and consider who is the healthiest and who is the least healthy. 1. The CEO of a large company who has 6 to 10 alcoholic drinks every 24 hours. 2. A student at Stanford University in the middle of studying for final exams. 3. A teenager born weighing 2 pounds who exhibits problems with coordination and cognition. 4. A paraplegic person who bikes to work each morning as an engineer at a major high-tech company, using a hand crank bike. 5. A teenager who is 25 pounds overweight and is sad and discouraged because she has few friends. 6. A 94-year-old who has lived in the same house for 20 years and who has the beginnings of kidney failure and is in the early stages of Alzheimer's disease. P. 12. Who do you think is the healthiest? The least healthy? If you had to rank them all, how would you rank them? Why? What are you using as the basis for your judgments? Reflect on why you made the choices you did. Have a colleague, partner, or friend rank them. Did they have the same rankings? In actuality, you likely do not have all the information about these people, and each has additional factors that support health or limit it. We encourage you to modify the list and do a similar activity with your students, because it can lead to robust discussions and insights on just how complicated health really is. With all this in mind, we offer the following definition for health: the state of well-being and balance within and among multiple dimensions of health, including but not limited to physical, mental, emotional, and social dimensions. This definition goes beyond the medical model because it shows that health is more than the absence of illness. It also suggests a salutogenic perspective because this definition acknowledges that individuals are not healthy or unhealthy. We have health, and that health lies somewhere on a continuum ranging from disease to ease or healthy, and we tend to be closer to one end of the spectrum than another. Note that the definition includes a focus on well-being and balance, which relates to a positive health perspective and not just an avoidance of risk or illness. We also suggest the importance of considering both the ways that we can move up and down the health continuum and which direction we are facing. Allah and Understanding, 2010, Antonovsky, 1996, Quinnerstedt and Oman, 2016. Let's look at an example. A student is currently vaping multiple pods per week, and we can agree that this behavior may place health somewhere on the disease end of the spectrum. However, this student has been cutting down use and is working toward quitting. Another student vapes every weekend when out with friends, believes this is a social behavior, and has no intention of quitting. We suggest that the first student is going in the healthy direction, even if currently in the disease end of the spectrum. The second student may not be as far down the continuum toward the disease end but is not facing in the healthy direction. See Figure 1.1. When we take a broader perspective of health, we allow for a wider range of experiences and realities, leave more room for varied cultural understandings of health and well-being, and create a more inclusive definition of health. Health is not a straightforward concept. It is not a one-size-fits-all framework. As the authors have learned, the more you explore health and well-being, the more there is to learn. As we explore other ways of thinking about health and well-being and examine factors that affect it, we realize the wonderful opportunity we have as health educators to open not only our own eyes and minds but also our students as well. This chapter is designed to provide a foundation on the discipline of health education and will start to explore the role that school-based health education and health educators can play in supporting the health and well-being of students, their communities, and beyond. The need for health education. There are many ways to justify the importance and need for health education. To begin, let's look at the health of citizens in the United States. According to the 2018 Health, United States report from the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, there have been improvements in health outcomes, but there are many areas of health and well-being in need of improvement, with the trends toward positive health behavior varied across behaviors, populations, or subgroups of Americans. In fact, health outcomes for Americans can look dramatically different based on age, location, race, ethnicity, social class, or sexual orientation. Looking at trends from the previous 10 years, the report shows that while the overall life expectancy for the total population rose to 78.6 years, which is 0.5 year higher than in 2007, positive trends also included decreases in infant mortality, increases in the number of people with health insurance, a reduction in teen birth rates, and a decrease in the number of Hispanic and non-Hispanic Black children with asthma. National Center for Health Statistics, 2019. Even with these gains, there are gaps in other areas. For example, non-Hispanic white persons experience a greater life expectancy of 3.6 years versus non-Hispanic Black persons. The obesity rates for children ages 2 to 19 rose from 14 to 19%. Approximately 34% of adults ages 18 to 64 reported at least some difficulty in daily functioning, hearing, mobility, communication, cognition, etc., and the use of tobacco products among young people rose to 27%, though cigarette use went down. National Center for Health Statistics, 2019. To address these gaps in health, we need to understand the root causes of these issues and work in ways that support individual opportunity to reduce these risks. Health education can contribute to this by helping youth develop the skills and knowledge to support health while also teaching the critical inquiry, advocacy, and social action skills that can support broader change. Figure 1.1, the health continuum. From healthy/ease state of health to unhealthy/disease state of health. Health education is a tool to support academic outcomes by teaching students the knowledge and skills to improve their health and the health of those around them. In addition to data that showcase the behaviors youth are engaging in or have developed, evidence shows that health behaviors and outcomes have a direct and positive relationship with academic outcomes. Cabrera, Rodriguez, Carl, and Chavez, 2018, CDC, 2014, Ikovics, Carol Scott, Peters, Schwartz, Gilstad Hayden, and McCaslin, 2014, Michael, Merlot, Bash, Wenzel, and Wexler 2015, Raspberry et al., 2015. When students are healthier, they are more ready and able to learn. CDC, 2014. Additional research notes that the more health assets a student possess, the more likely they are to surpass standardized testing benchmarks. Ikovics et al., 2014. Most notably, health education can provide these learning experiences for students as an important component of a well-rounded education. Association for Supervision and Curriculum Development ASCD, 2014, Bash, 2011, CDC, 2014, Cresswell, Hastings, and Huffman, 1966, Institute of Medicine, 1997, Marks, Woolley, and Northrop, 1998, WHO, 2003. In fact, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, HHS, suggested that the National Health Education Standards be included in school curriculum reform initiatives and that all students in post-secondary schools receive annual coursework in health literacy and health education. HHS, 2010. Doing so may increase health literacy levels within the population because health education can play an important role in addressing many different aspects of health and well-being that can affect youth now and across their lifetimes. Using resources in school-based health education. You may ask how a school, or educator, knows what is most relevant for their students. Perhaps you want to improve health outcomes and help students develop assets but haven't explored this idea. To better understand youth behaviors and their impact on health outcomes, let's review how data can shape our curriculum and what health behaviors need to be addressed through health education. Youth Risk Behavior Surveillance System. Typically, as health educators who work with young people in a school or otherwise, we target our efforts toward youth in kindergarten through grade 12. The Youth Risk Behavior Surveillance System, YRBSS, provides data specific to youth and a health snapshot captured through data collection with students in grades 9 through 12. 6 categories of health-related behaviors are measured in young people through a survey administered every 2 years, with information collected at the local, tribal, territorial, and state levels and all data feeding into a national-level data set. The categories of behaviors measured include the following: YRBSS, 2018. 1. Behaviors that contribute to unintentional injuries and violence. 2. Sexual behaviors related to unintended pregnancy and sexually transmitted diseases, including HIV infection. 3. Alcohol and other drug use. 4. Tobacco use. 5. Unhealthy dietary behaviors. 6. Inadequate physical activity. These behaviors represent the risk behaviors that significantly contribute to rates of injury, disability, and premature death in adolescents. CAN ETAL, 2019. Data from the 2017 administration of the YRBSS identifies considerations related to student demographics and high-risk behavior among teens that need to be addressed. CAN ETAL, 2019. In terms of demographics, YRBSS data reveal that 53.5% of respondents were white, 13.4% were black, 22.8% were Hispanic, and 10.3% were American Indian or Alaska Native, Asian, Native Hawaiian, or other Pacific Islander, or multiple race, non-Hispanic. Nationwide, 85.4% of students identified as heterosexual, 2.4% identified as gay or lesbian, 8% identified as bisexual, and 4.2% were not sure of their sexual identity. Among students who had sexual contact with only the same sex or with both sexes, 20.1% identified as heterosexual, 68.4% identified as gay, lesbian, or bisexual, and 11.4% were not sure of their sexual identity. CAN ETAL, 2019, p8. Having this information gives us an overview of some student identities across our country. It highlights the importance of ensuring that we are meeting the needs of students' intersectional identities in our own communities and are preparing them to interact with people with a range of identities as they become adults. Health education provides the opportunity for developing social-emotional competencies, addressing identity, addressing social justice, and helping students recognize that their health is connected to the health of others. In terms of health behaviors, the 2017 YRBSS data reveal the following. During the 30 days before the survey, 39.2% of high school students nationwide, among the 62.8% who drove a car or other vehicle during the 30 days before the survey, had texted or emailed while driving. 29.8% reported current alcohol use, and 19.8% reported current marijuana use. During the 12 months before the survey, 19% had been bullied on school property and 7.4% had attempted suicide. Nationwide, 39.5% of students had never had sexual intercourse and 9.7% had had sexual intercourse with 4 or more persons during their life. Among currently sexually active students, 53.8% reported that either they or their partner had used a condom during their last sexual intercourse. 43% played video or computer games or used a computer for 3 or more hours per day on an average school day for something that was not schoolwork, and 15.4% had not been physically active for a total of at least 60 minutes on at least one day during the 7 days before the survey. Further, 14.8% had obesity and 15.6% were overweight. CAN ETAL, 2019, p1. As this is only a subset of data, the specific numbers may look slightly different in your community. The data illustrate that, among youth, there is work to be done in reducing risk behaviors and increasing protective behaviors that support students in leading healthier lives in this country. If you live outside of the United States, look at the youth behavior statistics most relevant in your country and to your community. This may mean looking at global rankings and national and international trends. While the trends may vary, youth in every country have areas of health that can be improved and those that should be celebrated. Picture caption. Health is about more than the absence of an illness. Health educators can use data such as this to help frame and shape the content included in the curriculum. Additionally, health education allows students to explore perceptions, norms, and behaviors. Health educators can discuss why students may engage in behaviors that promote or limit their ability to be healthy. This can lead to exploring the societal and social structures that promote or limit health, the root causes of various health outcomes, or even the messages we receive about health and how those messages become internalized and reflected in personal behavior. As previously mentioned, we don't want health education to focus only on addressing risk factors. When we solely focus on risk or risky behaviors, we fail to consider the reasons behind behaviors. For example, if we focus on the fact that students are consuming too much screen time but fail to consider that screen time is their opportunity to relax and be social with friends, we may push to limit screen time. While we do want our young people interacting face-to-face, we would also want to look at the other outlets they have available to be social and relax with friends. In the absence of other viable and realistic alternatives, we will likely fail to make headway in reducing screen time. Another reason it is important to look beyond risk factors has to do with the intent of the behavior. As we will discuss in future chapters, humans are motivated by many different factors, some external and some internal. The expectation of reaching perfect health is unrealistic and can have unintended consequences. Our aim in health education is to engage students in critical thinking that encourages them to move in the direction of positive health outcomes. To do this, a person may improve current health status or health behaviors but still engage in a behavior that has health risks. We want to honor the work being done and continue to encourage forward progress. As an example, consider a student who has begun replacing a morning energy drink with green tea because the student realizes that they have been consuming too many energy drinks and do not like how it feels. However, the student has also realized that you cannot just stop drinking energy drinks altogether because of how it affects their body. So, the student develops a plan to cut down consumption by half for the first week, then to consume one every other day for 2 weeks, then one every third day for a week, then cut the drinks out completely. If you only asked if students drink energy drinks, this student would still say yes, even though the student is on a path to limiting consumption. Developmental assets. Lastly, we want to highlight the importance of considering the ways that health education can support the identification and development of assets and can contribute to positive health and well-being. One way that we can do this is by exploring the ways in which developmental assets contribute to improved outcomes of young people. Take time to review the 40 developmental assets from the Search Institute and the ways in which this framework describes the behaviors and experiences most likely to support young people in becoming caring, responsible, and productive adults. Search Institute, 2020. Consider ways to address these assets in your course and how you may be able to support these assets through the skills included in the curriculum. Assets are broken into both internal and external categories, with additional indicators under each larger category. The following highlights the main categories of assets. External assets. 1. Support. Receiving love, care, and acceptance from those surrounding them. 2. Empowerment. Having a feeling of value and being valued, including feelings of respect and safety. 3. Boundaries and expectations. Having clear rules and consequences and being encouraged to achieve to the best of their ability. 4. Constructive use of time. Having opportunities to learn and develop new skills both in and out of school and in collaboration with other youth and trusted adults. Internal assets. 1. Commitment to learning. Developing self-efficacy and placing a value on learning new and novel things. 2. Positive values. Developing guiding values or principles and using these to shape decisions and solve problems. 3. Social competencies. Developing the skills to interact with others, handle new and challenging situations, and navigate tough choices. 4. Positive identity. Recognizing self-worth and feeling that they have some control over the things that happen in their lives. Based on Search Institute, 2020. The Search Institute's research has found that the more developmental assets a young person possesses, the more likely they are to do better in school, be civically engaged, and place an increased value on diversity. We must better understand the role assets can play in future success and recognize how fewer assets can form barriers for young people while working to support and provide space for young people to increase the number of assets they have. In one example, youth who identified as LGBTQIA were more likely to identify a lower number of internal and external developmental assets compared to their heterosexual peers, with the exception of extracurricular non-sport participation and social justice values. Of note, feeling unsafe with their family, in the community, and with peers put these students at greater risk for suicidal behavior. Toomey, Sivertson, and Flores, 2019. While developmental assets cannot all be taught in a classroom, educators can consider how their classroom and school environment provides a space where each student can flourish. In health education, we have many natural connections and opportunities to include these developmental assets. First, you will likely note that the developmental assets also connect to social and emotional learning competencies, Collaborative Academic Social Emotional Learning CASEL, 2020, and the National Health Education Standards. This highlights the overlap of our work with efforts occurring around the whole school. We have an opportunity to help students develop these assets and use that learning in their lives outside the classroom. A second opportunity for applying developmental assets is to allow students to critically examine social supports, structures, and power influences and their roles in the helping or limiting a person from developing these assets. When health educators can provide a space for students to consider this and then recognize opportunities and limitations within their lives, we open the dialogue for students. While we will never be able to remediate all negative experiences of our students, we can support their development and provide meaningful opportunities for them to have support, growth, and opportunities to feel valued. A third opportunity to connect to health education is the role of developmental assets in the acquisition of health literacy. While we will delve deeper in the construct of health literacy in Chapter 4, it is worth noting higher levels of health literacy have been linked to positive health outcomes. Llewellyn, Hunt, Potsdama, Zeza, and Giles, 2015, Michael et al., 2015, Valois, Slade, and Ashford, 2011. In particular, health literacy has been linked to multiple health outcomes from the use of preventive services to self-reported feeling of health, HHS, 2010, C. Dentop and van der Mars, 2022. With only approximately 12% of Americans reporting proficient levels of health literacy, HHS, 2010, we must recognize that health education can play an important role in addressing the need of increasing health literacy levels of Americans. For example, health education has been noted to lead to an increase in both positive behavioral and knowledge outcomes such as improvements in body esteem and lower levels of substance use. Ben S., Boyd, Kusina, and Alperin, 2020. If students are not given an opportunity to explore their assets and the relationship of assets to risk behaviors within a health education course, they may not have other opportunities to connect these assets in meaningful ways to their health. Key points. 1. Health education is an opportunity to explore how individual health and well-being are rooted in personal experiences, values, and beliefs. 2. School-based health education is a core and critical component of a well-rounded education experience for students. 3. School-based health educators have an opportunity to partner with their community health education peers to co-create meaningful learning experiences that go beyond the classroom. Designing health education. The Every Student Succeeds Act, ESSA, noted that school-based health education is a critical component of a well-rounded education. U.S. Department of Education, 2016. From a practical perspective, this means that health education not only is relevant to a child's education but also is a core and primary component that should not be ignored. However, to ensure that health education becomes a meaningful experience for students, an effective use of time, and an opportunity to learn and apply new skills and information, let's take a moment to explore the definition we will use to inform our discussion. We propose that school-based health education is a planned, sequential, comprehensive, and relevant set of learning experiences taught within the academic subject of health education by a licensed health educator, addresses the impact of attitudes, beliefs, values, and actions on health and well-being, within and among multiple dimensions, and integrates strategies for health promotion to maintain or enhance health. Note that we have explicitly included criteria that align this definition with definitions from National Health Education Standards, Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, and Shape America. Let's explore each of the components in greater detail. 1. Planned, sequential, and comprehensive. School-based health education should be mapped and aligned to state and national standards, follow a sequence through multiple grades and ideally pre-K through grade 12, and be comprehensive enough to include a variety of skills and information that will support the well-being of the whole person. 2. Relevant. When learning experiences are relevant for students, they serve to relate to student life experiences and life context. As discussed throughout the book, we want to ensure that each student in our health education class experiences an opportunity to connect learning to their lives inside and outside of school. 3. Taught within the academic subject of health education. As a critical component of a well-rounded education, U.S. Department of Education, 2016, providing dedicated time and space to teach health education, ideally in a standalone course, helps ensure that students can develop the knowledge and skills that are a part of the health education curriculum. 4. Licensed health educators. As with any other academic subject area, it is important to ensure that teachers who have gone through an approved higher education program and demonstrated the knowledge, skills, and proficiencies to become licensed in health education by their state accrediting body, Shape America, 2015, Shape America, 2019a, are the ones teaching health education. The definition can be used to look at health education collectively, but in this text, we take this definition even further by defining a skills-based approach in health education, see Chapter 2, and discuss specific considerations for adapting this definition to further align with a skills-based approach to teaching health education. To support the transition to skills-based health education, we encourage you to review and use 2 documents with other teachers in your school and district to develop health education courses. The first document, which is a part of the Health Education Program Checklist from Shape America, 2019b, is the Essential Components of Health Education, Shape America, 2019a. It looks at the broader, programmatic level through the lens of 4 components, see Figure 1.2. 1. Policy and environment. Creating policies that articulate the time and duration of health education in the school curriculum can be an important step to ensuring that all students receive health education during their schooling. Policies can also help to ensure that state and national requirements are met and that health education curriculum is reviewed at intervals equivalent to other subject areas. While policy development is beyond the scope of this text, you can find more information at www.shapeamerica.org. Figure 1.2, Shape America's Essential Components of Health Education. Reprinted by permission from Shape America, The Essential Components of Health Education, Reston, Virginia, Shape America, 2019, 3. https://www.shapeamerica.org/uploads/pdfs/2019/80VOCACI/position-health-education.pdf. A. Policy and environment. B. Curriculum. C. Appropriate instruction. D. Student assessment. 2. Curriculum. Having a quality curriculum is the first step to ensuring that students receive effective instruction during their time in health education. A strong curriculum should include defined outcomes, learning objectives, assessments, and learning experiences that are relevant and meaningful for students, are based on local need, and address social and societal considerations. For detailed information about curriculum development, see Chapter 15. 3. Appropriate instruction. Effective health education goes beyond what is being taught, it's also how it is being taught. Health educators must differentiate instruction, use diverse modes of delivery, and use a mix of instructional strategies to meet the needs of a variety of learners. This text will also support you as you create learning experiences that take students through skill development to reach proficiency. For more on instructional strategies, see Chapter 18. 4. Student assessment. To measure student growth, programs must include meaningful opportunities for students to demonstrate their learning. Both formative and summative assessments provide an opportunity to gauge student progress, give feedback, and measure student growth toward identified outcomes and objectives. For more on assessment, see Chapter 16. The second document, the Shape America, 2015, Appropriate Practices in School-Based Health Education, filters the programmatic considerations down to the classroom level. This tool can be used to assess how your health education program is designed and provide an opportunity for reflection and growth. While there is overlap with the essential components of health education, this document goes even deeper into the specific educator components. This document is broken up into 6 sections. 1. Learning environment. This explores the classroom environment and gives suggestions and strategies for creating a learning environment where each student feels welcomed, valued, engaged, and respected. 2. Curriculum. This explores the written curriculum and provides strategies to help you design a curriculum that is skills-based and aligns with appropriate standards. It is written in a developmentally appropriate and sequential way. 3. Instructional strategies. This section provides strategies and suggestions for integrating instructional strategies that engage families and caregivers, are participatory, and supports the ability for each student to learn. 4. Assessment. This section explores strategies for designing performance-based summative assessments that measure student proficiency and formative assessments that support student growth and progress. 5. Advocacy. This section focuses on the importance of health educators being advocates within their building for health education and within the field to support high-quality educational practices. 6. Professionalism. This section explores the importance of health educators maintaining ethical practices and professional development opportunities that help you to grow in your practice as an educator. Throughout this text, we have included the appropriate practices in the chapters they are most connected to. We encourage you to consider both the essential components of health education and the appropriate practices in school-based health education and use this as an opportunity to reflect upon yourself as an educator and the practices you implement in the classroom and in the profession. Improving health outcomes. As described earlier in the chapter, the health needs of young people, who grow to become adults, are vast, and developing assets is essential to improving health outcomes across their lifespans. If these reasons alone are not enough to consider including a lens toward increasing the developmental assets of young people, then consider that health education can help level the playing field for students. It can provide a space to delve into issues that they may not have considered or been asked to think about before. Health education can set the stage for lifelong habits and be a space for students to challenge their current assumptions about what it means to be healthy. As health educators, we have both great opportunity and great responsibility. We encourage you to envision your health education classroom as a space where students feel included, affirmed, valued, and heard. It should be a space where it is okay to take risks and explore difficult topics because learning is a process, and we all need the time to practice new skills. Your classroom can be a space where students learn about and begin to understand how social constructs and societal norms are formed and how these norms can support or hinder health. If we consider that the majority of any person's health is a result of the environment around them, both nature and built environment, it allows students to critically assess factors within their control and those outside of their control. When this happens, we can challenge students to see health and well-being from a personal lens and then from the perspective of a change agent within their community. We can shape what happens in our classrooms and serve as a connector for larger school-wide initiatives related to health and wellness. Because of this, we chose to integrate the World Health Organization, WHO, definition of health education, any combination of learning experiences designed to help individuals and communities improve their health by increasing their knowledge or influencing their attitudes, WHO, ND. If we see the overarching aim of health education through this lens, it broadens both our perspective and the opportunity for health education to play a meaningful role in the school efforts to support student health and well-being. In the classroom, the health teacher is directly working with students to help them learn the skills and knowledge to apply health in their own life. Outside the classroom, students can use this learning in discussions with the school nurse as they consider choices in the cafeteria, when solving a conflict at recess, or even when researching a topic for another class. The School Health Index, SHE Self-Assessment and Planning Guide from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, 2019, provides a tool for this work. This resource provides a bird's-eye, school-level view of your health education program in the health education module. When the health education module is done in combination with other modules, it can provide insight into the school policies and programs that are supporting a culture of health and well-being versus areas of growth. This is discussed further in Chapter 6. When we expand our emphasis from teaching health to students, individual level, to include this bird's-eye view, we recognize that health education also can connect with and affect the larger community, population level. While school health educators cannot, and should not, be responsible for health education at the community level, we do have both an opportunity and responsibility to work with our community partners. We can use this as an opportunity to support the development of future community members who will have an opportunity to shape policy decisions that can affect the quality of life within the community and among its citizens. These collaborations must go beyond bringing in guest speakers. We have an opportunity to co-create meaningful learning experiences that build upon the expertise of the community health educator and their organization, and your expertise in teaching students in a classroom setting. Keep this in mind as you work through this text. Ask yourself, in what ways could I integrate my community resources and fellow health educators to advance the health education students in our school receive? You may find that having this conversation with community partners allows them to design resources and materials that will meet your needs in the classroom while also spreading their health message at the population level. The importance of health education. Advice from the field. Kimberly O'Hara-Borowski, health teacher, Ocean View High School, Huntington Beach, California, 2018 Shape America National Teacher of the Year. Why is it important to include health education as a core part of the kindergarten through grade 12 curriculum? Imagine walking into a classroom where students are practicing expressing their feelings, learning to prevent and manage interpersonal conflicts, and rehearsing the prevention and management of emotional stress and anxiety in healthy ways. These are just a few examples of the kindergarten through grade 12 school-based health education healthy behavior outcomes from the CDC. To achieve these healthy behavior outcomes, students must be health literate. No other subject equips students with functional knowledge and essential skills such as analyzing influences, accessing valid and reliable information, products and services, interpersonal communication, decision-making, goal setting, self-management, and advocacy necessary for supporting and enhancing health and well-being. Furthermore, being a teacher during the COVID-19 pandemic highlighted the importance and need for school-based health education. A focus on skills in school-based health education is essential for learning proper handwashing and personal protective equipment, PPE, use, accessing valid and reliable information, and helping students deal with trauma through practicing self-management techniques. We saw many states address mental health and social-emotional learning as a top priority for reopening schools when less emphasis had previously been given. Not coincidentally, the National Health Education Standards, NHES, and Collaborative Academic Social-Emotional Learning, CASEL, CEL competencies overlap. Many school-based health education programs already implement CEL in their classrooms. School-based health education is essential, and now is the time to advocate for it. What benefits have you found for a skills-based approach to health education? Do the best you can until you know better. Then when you know better, do better. Maya Angelou. This quote stuck with me after I was introduced to skills-based health education. I remember one of my students asking why they needed to take health since they could just Google it. I quickly realized my students no longer needed to memorize facts and that I should throw out our district textbook, which was incredibly outdated. They needed to develop lifelong skills to become health-literate beings. My students desperately needed media literacy skills and to learn how to access valid and reliable health information and services in our community. They needed to practice communication skills to maintain healthy relationships and refusal skills to respond to such pressures as vaping and social media bullying. Gone were the days of memorizing facts and getting an A on a test, and here were the days of developing the NHES 2-8 skills and working toward mastery. The wonderful thing about skills-based health education is that content can be woven into any skill unit. I have found teaching skills-based health education more rewarding, fun, and student-centered. A quality skills-based health education program includes many hands-on participatory methods that engage students, such as discussions, creating a public service announcement, PSA, storytelling, and role plays that fosters developing lifelong skills in your students. A skills-based approach gives your students the confidence and self-efficacy to practice healthy behaviors beyond your classroom walls. What advice do you have for other health educators in the field? Transitioning to skills-based health education takes time, and change doesn't happen overnight. There is no right or wrong way to start out. I recommend focusing on teaching 1 or 2 skills and going in depth to develop the skill progression versus trying to rush to teach all the skills for NHES standards 2-8. When I first started implementing skills-based health, I wanted to incorporate all the skills but found out it was nearly impossible to properly develop these skills in a single high school semester course. Focusing on a few skills and giving your students time to develop and practice the skill over time and for the students to receive constructive feedback on how to improve the skill toward mastery is essential. The exciting thing about skills-based instruction is that content can be woven into the different skill units. For example, at the beginning of the semester, I introduce accessing information for locating and evaluating valid and reliable nutritional resources online. Later in the semester, I have my students find valid and reliable resources for their sexual health and use those resources within their advocacy research projects. When planning my scope and sequence, I use local data from the California Healthy Kids Survey and Youth Risk Behavior Surveillance System, YRBSS, to inform my instruction. When designing my course, I ask myself these 3 backward design questions from Fink, 2003. 1. What do you want students to learn by the end of the course that will still be with them several years later? 2. What will the students have to do to demonstrate that they have achieved the learning goals? 3. What would have to happen during the course for students to do well on feedback and assessment activities? 4. What will the teacher and students need to do for students to learn? P5. I also recommend attending your state OPERD and SHAPE conferences and the National SHAPE America conferences, where you can find support for a skills-based health education journey. I have found connecting with others online through social media, such as Twitter using the hashtags #health, #skills-based-healthid, can connect you to many like-minded health educators who are willing to share information and resources to get you started. We also encourage you to consider ways that you can use health education to affect your community. Perhaps it is through a service learning project or an advocacy campaign. Perhaps students organize a park cleanup day or write letters to local officials about an issue happening in the community. Perhaps students organize a food pantry drive or examine root causes of an issue and create potential solutions that are presented to local leaders. When we do this, we help students develop skills for social action while also creating meaningful impact in the community. Health education can be a time to raise student voices and show them how to use their voices for change. Summary: schools have an opportunity to address both the health and academic outcomes of their students. A health education course sets the stage for supporting students in developing the knowledge and skills to lead lives that enhance health. When health educators understand how individual values, beliefs, and personal experiences affect behaviors and action, we become better able to design student learning experiences that honor each student as their own person. Review questions. 1. Discuss the difference between health and wellness or well-being. What do these 2 constructs mean to you? 2. What are the 6 appropriate practices of school-based health education? How do these practices support high-quality health education? 3. Identify 2 new things you learned in this chapter and explain how these will help you to become a better health educator. To find supplementary materials for this chapter, such as worksheets and extended learning activities, visit HK Propel.